Malachei El Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Malachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei El Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Malachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Say L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei El Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Malachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to continue on page 7 of our Siddurim, as we're going to join together for the responsive reading as the candle blessings are being read. But actually, first we're going to actually invite up Liz to lead us in some of our special programming specific to our Day of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And make sure you have it mic up here also.
Tonight, in commemoration of International Holocaust Memorial Day, which will be held on Monday, January 27th, we are going to honor Jewish resistant fighters. There were many forms of resistance during the Holocaust. They ranged from armed confrontation to passive defiance. Resistance included rescue, concealment, destruction, and any other form of denying the Nazis and their allies the chance to carry out their murderous goals. Tens of thousands of Jews, mostly teenagers and young adults, formed or joined organized guerrilla warfare groups known as partisans. Many were determined to stop the Nazis from killing more Jews. Others sought to avenge the murder of loved ones. The partisans excelled in disrupting Nazi supply lines. They blew up troop trains, destroyed bridges, blocked major roads, and knocked down communication lines. They sabotaged power plants and triggered and participated in uprisings in ghettos and prison camps. Most partisans lived in the woods under very harsh conditions. They never stayed in one place for long because thousands of heavily armed enemy troops swarmed the woods hunting for them. Partisans endured sub-zero temperatures, hip-deep snow, unbearable heat, and torrential rain. Their numbers were small compared to the large-scale operations of the German army, and they operated with limited weapons. They were in constant fear of being turned in by local residents. An estimated 10% of the partisans were women. Many were fighters, spies, scouts, and couriers. One of these partisans was my uncle, Samuel Offenberger, who was a teenager at the beginning of the Holocaust. Samuel was shot and killed during a skirmish with local authorities who were Nazi sympathizers. He was killed in the woods a few miles outside of Hrodenka, Poland, which is now in the Ukraine. The death toll at the end of the Holocaust would have been much larger if not for the brave partisans who courageously fought tyranny and oppressions. Tonight, we will honor 8 Jewish partisans who survived the Holocaust and then emigrated to the United States. These fighters ended up living in the New York, New Jersey area. Many of them became Holocaust speakers who spread their stories of the Holocaust all over New York and New Jersey. We light our first candle to honor Ita Grobel. Ida began her resistance activities by creating false identity papers for fellow Jews. Now just hold it. Turn around and hold it. Down there. Fine. Never on the step. She also smuggled out guns that she had stolen from the Nazis and delivered them to partisans in the woods. Etta was caught and then beaten and tortured for 10 months. She was released to help build Majdanek Death Camp. On the way to the camp, she escaped to the woods. She helped organize and command a Jewish partisan group located in the forests of central Poland. She was shot in the leg and had to dig the bullet out all by herself. Unlike the other 7 women in her unit, she refused to cook or clean. After the war, she emigrated to the United States, eventually residing in New Jersey. Etta traveled all over New Jersey, educating school children about her experiences. Etta would always end her speeches by saying, "The biggest resistance that we could have done to the Germans is to survive." We light our second candle to honor Adam Boren. No, just turn that. Adam Boren, along with his father and brother, were captured by the Germans when they took over part of the Soviet Union. Adam escaped on the night that they were supposed to be hung. Unfortunately, his father and brother were executed that same night. Adam returned to his mother in the Warsaw Ghetto. He participated in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. His mother was killed, and he was wounded and taken prisoner. He was sent to 3 different concentration camps and had to endure a death march. Adam was liberated by the American Army and emigrated to the United States in 1946. Adam lived in New York, Colorado, and ended up in Rumson, New Jersey. Adam was a very successful businessman. He became a Holocaust speaker and a major donor to the Change Museum located at Brookdale Community College. Adam would always say, "I lost my whole family. I survived, but I cannot call myself fortunate." We light our third candle in honor of Miles Lerman. In 1941, Miles Lerman was captured in Poland and sent to the Wyniki forced labor camp, from where he escaped. He spent the next 23 months as a Jewish resistance fighter in the forests surrounding Lwów, Poland. In 1946, he immigrated to the United States, eventually settling in Vineland, New Jersey. He owned a chicken farm and established several other very successful businesses. President Jimmy Carter appointed Miles to the President's Commission Advisory Board on the Holocaust. The main task of this commission was the creation of a museum dedicated to the remembrance of the Holocaust. Miles became the chairman of the subcommittee Campaign to Remember. This committee raised $190 million to help build the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. Miles was also the chairman of the International Relations Committee. This committee, under Miles' leadership, negotiated with Eastern European countries to acquire important artifacts for the museum, such as barracks from Birkenau, a boxcar used to transport Jews to Treblinka, over 5,000 shoes from Majdanek concentration camp, and numerous items from Auschwitz. Without Miles' leadership, this important museum might never have been built. We light our fourth candle to honor Helen Terrace. Helen was only 6 years old when she survived a massacre of Jews in Lida, Poland. To survive, Helen's mother covered the 2 of them in blood, and they hid under dead bodies. They escaped into the woods and joined the Bielski Brigade. Helen, along with the other children in the camp, would entertain the partisans at night. This entertainment was to keep the partisans' spirits up. Helen credits her courageous mother with their survival. "My mother never gave up in her constant struggle to keep us alive." Our survival represents a great victory over Hitler and his evil cohorts who tried to kill us. Helen spoke about her experiences during the war, especially to school children and soldiers. She was a volunteer at the Change Museum at Brookdale Community College in Lincroft. To quote Helen, "For many years I could not speak about the past. It was just too painful. But now I don't have a choice. So it's never repeated and it's never forgotten." We light our 5th candle in honor of Lola Klein and her uncles, the Belaski brothers. By the way, Lola is still alive and still speaking. Lola Klein's mother was a sister to the Belaski brothers. Lola was 6 months old when her mother took Lola to the Belaski camp in the Belarus woods to escape being captured. When Lola was 9 months old, her family arranged for Lola to be fostered by a Polish Catholic family. The brothers were afraid that if Lola remained in the camp, her cries would alert the Nazis to their location. After the war, Lola's parents had to kidnap her back from her foster parents, who felt that Lola was now their child. Lola's family ended up in a DP camp in Germany and then emigrated to the United States. Lola's uncles were responsible for saving 1,200 Jews in their camp. There are now 23,000 and counting descendants of those 1,200 Jews that the Belaskis saved. Lola lives in Monmouth County, where she is an active volunteer at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in Freehold. We light the 6th candle to honor Shalom Yorel. Shalom's mother told him, "Go fight, try to save yourself, avenge my death, and tell the world what happened." She was later burned and murdered with many other Jews from their village. Shalom escaped into the woods and helped form an all-Jewish unit in the woods in western Belarus. His group waged guerrilla warfare against German troops. They ambushed convoys, blew up bridges and railroads, and derailed German trains. After the war, he made it to the British Mandate of Palestine using false identification. Eventually, he made it to New York. Shalom was a founding board member of the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York. We light a very special 7th candle to honor 2 men who were members of the Henry Rickless Holocaust Memorial Committee of Monroe Township. Unfortunately, I have very little information about their partisan activities. For now, at least, I plan to do more research. For many years, Asher Goldstein was a very active member of Rickless. There was even a Yom HaShoah dedicated to his experiences during the Holocaust. He was a partisan living in the woods in Hungary. His job was to find foods and supplies in Budapest and bring it back to his group in the woods. Karl Lustbader belonged to Rickless until his death. He was very proud of his partisan activities. It was his job every year at Yom HaShoah to sing the partisan song. His son set up a Holocaust library in Massachusetts in his memory. Thank you for listening.
Should we sit down?
Yes, you sit down.
Should we leave them here?
You can put them on the table.
On the table?
Oh, that would have been nice.
For sure.
I didn't think of that.
All right, we'll put a couple.
We now turn to page 7 of our Siddurim as we prepare to light the Shabbos candles. Page 7 will join together for the responsive reading. Come, let us welcome Shabbat.
May His radiance illuminate our hearts.
Light is the symbol of the divine.
Eternal is my light and my salvation.
Light is the symbol of the divine within us.
The human spirit is the light of the eternal.
Light is the symbol of the divine law.
For the mitzvah is a lamp and the Torah a light.
Light is the symbol of Israel's mission.
I, the Eternal, have made you a covenant people, a light to the nations.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kisham bo mitzvotav tzivanu halikner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, O eternal our God, who makes our lives holy through divine mitzvah and has commanded us to kindle the Shabbos lamps. May the Eternal bless us with Shabbos joy. May the Eternal bless us with Shabbat peace.
Amen.
May the Eternal bless us with Shabbat holiness.
Amen.
Amen. We now turn to page 9 of our Siddurim, page 9 of our Siddurim, where we will join together for Lechai Dodi. Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Shamor B'Zachor B'Dibor Echad Ishmi'anu Echad Nuchad Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad Lishem Otiferet V'Litihila Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Likrat Shabbat Lehu Benelcha Ki Mekor HaBracha Merosh Mikedem Nesuka Sof Ma'asa B'Maksha Tehila Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Hi Ori Kiva Orek Kumi Ori Shir Daveri Kavod Adonai Alai Nigila Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Now we rise as we face the entrance or exit of our building as we welcome in the Shabbos bride. Boi v'shalom atzeret ba'ala gam b'simcha u'b'tzola toch emunei am sigula boi kala lechai dodi ligraka la yadai b'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lechai Dodi Ligraka La Yadai B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. We remain standing now on page 11 as we join together for the Hatzi Kaddish. Yitkada v'yitkadash Shemei Rabba B'almadi B'rachirutei Yomlech Malchutei B'chayechon u'yoymechon u'chayetechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala u'bizman karib Yemaru Amen Yahei Shmei Rabba Mivorak Le'olam Lo Me'amaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitraman V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Kudusha B'rechu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tush V'chata V'nechemata Dami Iran B'alma Yamaru Amen. We join together for the Baruch Hu on page 12 of our Siddurim. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMivorach Baruch Adonai HaMivorach Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Adonai HaMivorach Le'olam Va'ed. Page 13 will join together with a responsive reading joining together. Eternal God, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, not let your glory depart from us. Help us become co-workers with you, and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai HaMa'ariv Aravim,
Blessed are you,
who brings on the evening. Page 14, we join together at the bottom of the page for the translation for Ahavat Olam. With eternal love you have loved your people, the house of Israel. Torah and commandments, statutes and judgments you taught us. Therefore, O eternal our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will discuss your statutes and rejoice in the words of your Torah and your commandments forever. For they are our lives and they lengthen our days, and we will meditate upon them day and night. May you never remove your love from us forever and ever. Blessed are you, O eternal, who loves God's people, Israel. Page 15, we will join together for the Shema prayer. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Liolam Va'ed. You may be seated for the V'ahavta on page 16. Page 16. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha ub'chol nafshecha ub'chol meotecha v'hayu hativarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzadecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shitecha b'veitecha u'v'letecha v'derech Ushapecha ukomecha, ukshartam liot al yadecha, ve'ayu letotafot beinenecha, uktavtam al mizuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Leman tizkeru v'asitem ekol mitzvotai, v'eitem kiroshim levalechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Asher hotzeiti etchem mi'eretz Mitzrayim le'yot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem. And page 17, we join together for a responsive reading. Eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares.
Let them beat their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, let them study war no more.
You shall not hate another in your heart, you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Let the stranger be in your midst to you as the native, for you were once strangers in the land of Egypt.
From the house of bondage we went forth to freedom, so let all be free to sing with joy.
Page 18, we join for Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha, Ba'alim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar by kodesh nora teilot osei fele machutecha rubanecha bokeyam lifnei Moshe ze eli anu v'yamru Adonai yimlok leolam va'ed v'ne'emar kifra Adonai et Yaakov u'v'yomer chazak mimenu baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Page 19, we join together for a responsive reading. Calls us, O eternal our God, to lie down in peace and to awaken us each morning to life renewed with strength. Spread over us the holy shelter of your peace.
Help us to order our lives by your counsel and lead us in the paths of righteousness. Be a shield about us, protecting us from hate and war, from pestilence and sorrow.
Curb also within us the inclination to do evil, and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Guard our going out and our coming into life, with peace from this time forth and forever.
Blessed are you, O eternal, whose holy shelter of peace is spread over us, over all God's people in Israel, and over Jerusalem.
We join together on page 21 as we prepare for the Amidah prayer. We stand at this time for tefillah. We rise at this time. Adonai sefatati tachufi yagita hilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor V'Hanorah El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim Bekonei HaKol Bezocher Chasdei Avot V'Imaot Umevi Geulah Lifnei Pneichem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach Mayim Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham Yisrael Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Hoshia Mashiach Ruach Amarita Geshem Mekapel Chayim V'Chesed Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Olim Umatir Asurim Omekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Mikamocha Bal Gilurot Umidol Melach Melech Memid Omechayim Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atzalech HaHayot HaKol Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Kadosh B'Shem HaKadosh B'Shem B'chol Yom Yahalelucha Selah Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. We daven silently. After you've completed davening, we will join together for Oseh Shalom, and you may be seated after completing davening. Okay, we join together on page 29 for Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom Bimramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'emeru Amen. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us again for this very special service. So normally is the time of the service where I will share some words of Torah, but given that the circumstances tonight present themselves as an opportunity to talk about International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I'm going to be talking about that instead, and the relevance it is to our community specifically for today. So today we reach back in time to the 1940s in recognition of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We recount the 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust. Today we also recount the 6 million other victims, such as the Gypsy, the Roma, and members of the gay community who also perished into the hellfire of destruction of the Second World War. Poignant to this fact is the attention drawn to Jewish partisans and resistance fighters during the Holocaust. Jewish resistance groups are often an overlooked statistic in the Holocaust. The death figures of the Holocaust are incomprehensible. So it's no surprise that oftentimes that these groups are overlooked. Yet we are aware these groups, as they are well documented, were active during the war and they organized inside of harsh conditions, such as the Warsaw Ghetto, and heroically fought against Nazi aggression. They established Otriads, the most well-known of which was the Belsky Otriad, which was novelized in the film Defiance, directed by Edward Zwick in 2008. Inside of the extermination camps themselves, there were also acts of resistance. In Sobibor concentration camp, a well-organized uprising left 300 prisoners to flee the camp. And on October 7, 1944, a group of Sonderkommandos, that is, Jewish prisoners forced to operate the crematorium of Auschwitz, revolted and blew up parts of the crematorium. The Holocaust and the partisan fighters are subjects that I'm passionate about. In 2016, I completed a master's in Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and my thesis was on American political censorship targeting Jews in art and in the motion picture industry of the 1930s and the 1940s. However, the Holocaust is rooted in my familial history as well, because my grandfather was interned for 4 years in a lager camp during the war in Nazi Germany. Holocaust education is clearly a personal passion of me for these reasons. To me, the Holocaust was and is an event that shaped our consciousness as Jews. It has traumatized our nation and people. And it is not our past, it is who we are in the present, and it will shape our future. However, a reoccurring question poses itself to me oftentimes as a rabbi and also a scholar of Holocaust and Genocide Studies. And the question repeating itself as a mantra professionally and academically is as follows. Why do we need to learn about the Holocaust, or what from it? And what lessons can humanity derive from such a dark chapter of human history? I think the answer to this question is the topic that we've decided to focus in on here today as a congregation. We're focused today on resistance as an act of heroism, of standing up for what is right in the face of a system hell-bent on destroying all that is good. So how often today and how often tomorrow will we as individuals or a people face such a dilemma? In the face of an oppressive ruler or a system that takes away rights as well as human dignity and freedom, we stand with the narrative that we reflect upon here today. We resist, we dissent, we stand up for what is right. But how we do it matters. Art and violence are perhaps the most ironically diametrically opposed yet universal systems to resistance. Although today we draw attention to the fighters, we should also bring to light the music to which they were devoted to also. So we'll turn to some packets over there in just a moment which will demonstrate some of that art form though. Art is the color through which many see this world. It is empowering. It is subversive, and it has the ability to be analytical. It is commentary. Our people have used its art forms to overthrow dictators, to challenge anti-Semitism, and to wage wars on Hitler and Stalin. It has ushered in new eras and has been a constant pulse of the people and for the people. It is a democratic voice in which all can participate in, regardless of background, national origin, or religion. Art has the ability to create equality, and it sounds the eternal voices of the people. It is a naturally liberating force. So in a few moments, we're going to turn to a set of text. It is the set of text of Zog Nikemo. How many of you here are familiar with it? It is the partisan song, the national anthem that partisans would sing in the camps, in the ghettos, as they resisted Nazi oppression. The hymn was written by Hirsch Glick during the war, and it was first sung in the Vilna ghetto, but it was echoed into the Warsaw ghetto during its uprising of 1943. Throughout the war, the song was sung as an anthem of resistance to Nazi oppression and of the survival of the Jewish people against all odds. But the importance of why the Holocaust must be taught, and why the Holocaust is such an important chapter of human history, is best demonstrated anecdotally from a part of history that was prevented. What many people may not know that had happened. It is what could have happened that is a second Holocaust. How many of you here today are familiar with a name, the name Paul Robeson? Okay, I'm glad. Many of us are familiar, some of us aren't. We're going to talk a little bit about him. So Paul Robeson was a New Jersey native, an African American born in 1895. And he's best known as a brilliant musician, ideologue, and polyglot. He grew up not too far from here. He was actually born in Princeton. He did his undergraduate at Rutgers University and then law school at Columbia. However, he had an ideological awakening in his mid-30s and went to college, where I studied in London, actually at the School for Oriental and African Studies. It was at his time while there that he became active in a political organization that became very controversial, known as the Communist Party. It was very not uncommon, though, for his era for people to affiliate with it. His communist affiliations were mirrored by many prominent American-born and Soviet-born Jews during the 1930s and 40s. However, in the Soviet Union by the 1940s, by the late 1940s, Jewish intellectuals, rabbis, and politicians were being rounded up en masse in the Soviet Union. The fear of the international community in the late 1940s and into the 1950s was that the Soviet Union would exterminate en masse the remaining Jews of Europe. To this backdrop, in 1949, Paul Robeson flew to the Soviet Union to perform live with the Moscow Symphony. By the 1940s, Robeson had won international attention and accolades for his music, but he was also a very controversial figure because of his affiliations with the Communist Party. Perceived as un-American and a traitor, he was performing in the very capital of the Soviet Union, what was known as the Evil Empire. And in the Soviet Union, Robeson was greeted as a celebrity, and his performance in Moscow was one of the first performances broadcasted from Moscow and watched and listened to from across the globe. When Robeson arrived in Moscow in 1949, his first request upon arrival was to meet with his fellow communist and socialist sympathizers for whom he wrote throughout the war. Many of them were Jewish, and to Robeson's dismay, he discovered in 1949, many had already been shot and sent to gulags in Siberia. To this backdrop, and to his friends and colleagues and fellow human beings, Jews who were being hunted in the Soviet Union, Paul Robeson chose to sing a song defying the Soviet Union and their system of oppression. Before the Moscow Symphony, what song do you think he chose? Zog Nikemo. He sang Zog Nikemo because it defied the Soviet Union and spoke out to prevent another Holocaust from happening. Robeson performed, and his performance of Zog Nikemo was impressive and provocative because it came at the very height of Stalin's purges. And although Robeson was not Jewish, he was a Christian born of African Americans, Robeson used the Mongoloidian, that is, the Yiddish tongue, to stand with the Jewish people, and Robeson led an entire life of subversion. He was blacklisted from the United States during the McCarthy era. And although he publicly never acknowledged it, his performance was a swipe in Moscow at the Soviet Union for its purges against the Jewish people. A model of the subversive artist, nothing was unintentional for Paul Robeson, and his performance in Moscow was an act of artistic dissent against anti-Semitic authoritarian regimes. Robeson did not single-handedly prevent a second Holocaust from happening, but the movement to free Soviet Jewry was greater than one single person. However, this song, the spirit of the partisan, captures the very essence of what lessons we may impart from the Holocaust. We must stand up for what is right. When injustice rears its head into our world, we must take a stand. We cannot afford or tolerate another death by a system of injustice. Resist, dissent, and take a stand. Never be ambivalent to the suffering of others. That is the lesson which we must impart upon future generations. Can you hear that song? May it be God's will. And now we're going to hear that song, Zovnik Kamel, sung by Paul Robeson in Moscow in 1949. This is the same song that they were singing in the concentration camps, the same song that they were singing in the Warsaw Ghetto, the same song of resistance of our people, but it is a song that not only we connect to, but all people may connect to, and we're going to hear that song in just a moment. You have the translation as well that was distributed too. It's going to be sung in Yiddish. The original song was in Yiddish. Of course, it was composed in Eastern Europe by Yiddish speakers. However, we have the translation available for you there as well. Is it even on? I can't even see the TV. The suspense.
That'd make it easier.
Get you all excited to watch a video, and then we have a blank screen.
Make sure it goes to HG.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, we'll get it.
You know, you get what you pay for, which is paid me nothing.
Looking for a signal.
Come on, I worked with you. There you go.
Okay.
Now we can listen to it.
Do we want to turn off the light?
You're not going to see anything on. It's not like you're going to see him playing.
Say that you have reached
No, this isn't the one. This is not the one.
This is the one she picked.
Yes, this isn't the one. You have to go back.
What? Sorry. Go back to what?
You have to go back to YouTube. This is the correct one.
This is YouTube.
Yeah, you have to go back to Zovnik Kamel, Paul Robeson.
This is Paul Robeson.
Yeah, but this is not the one that he does.
Would you like to?
Sorry. Maybe I can read this poem while you sing
No,
this.
it's
No,
okay.
it's fine. You don't think it's fine. Have a quick intermission here.
Eternal intervention.
You enjoying this so far?
Yeah.
Good, 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 good. Good. Okay.
Is it still on the TV?
No, that's even score.
There we go. It's on now.
Say that you have reached the
This is
very
the one you just
No,
picked.
this is
Pick this one.
Maybe I should just read
One
it.
specifically.
Yeah, there it is.
Well,
So why
it says
is
it on the
in
bottom,
Moscow?
so that's it. The Zognik, yeah, gotcha. So that-
Maybe they sing it in English first and then.
This is one. So if you listen, does anyone here speak Russian? Because I do.
No, I know.
Okay, so at the very beginning they introduce. You can play it after. I'll
Yes.
signal to you. In the very I'll stand up on the beam so people can hear me projecting. Okay, so in the Soviet Union, if those of you who are not familiar with it, by the period of the 1940s, the late 1940s, outlawed was going to be expressions to Judaism. That is, the intellectuals, the rabbis of the Soviet Union were being sent off to gulags and being shot systemically at this time. Even the mention in Moscow Symphony at the very introduction of Paul Robeson that this is a Jewish song was taboo. The mention of Jewish itself in the Soviet Union was taboo in itself. However, we see at the very introduction, with him being introduced before Moscow Symphony, that this is a Jewish song and he will be singing it, is a very act of defiance in itself as well. So why don't we take it away?
Еврейского гетто, оккупированной немцами Варшавы.
Als du gehst den letzten Weg, den edlen Beine verstellen neue Tege, weil kommen wird nach unser Reusgebiet geschah, uns wird abbeugt und unser Trott mir seinen Tor. Weil kommen wird nach unser Reusgebiet geschah, uns wird abbeugt und unser Trott mir seinen Tor. Wie den Palmenland bis Weidenland von Schnee, seine Damen, unser Pein mit unser Weh. Und wenn gefallen ist, es spritzt von unser Blut, wird noch sprotzt von unser Geburt, unser Mut. Und wenn gefallen ist, es spritzt von unser Blut, wird noch sprotzt von unser Geburt, unser Mut. Geschrieben ist das Lied mit Blut und nicht mit Blei, es ist nicht ein Lied von so einem Vogel ab der Frei. Das hat der Volk zwischen Fallen tiefer Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Wind. Das hat der Volk zwischen Fallen tiefer Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Wind.
Thank you. So the choice to having Paul Robeson specifically, there are many people who sing Zog and Camel, as many of you are familiar with, but the decision to have Paul Robeson actually singing Zog and Camel specifically, I find it very relevant to our discussion here today because it is an example of someone who is standing up at the very moment to a system of oppression that he sees going on. And of course his commentary on that oppression wasn't just in the Soviet Union, it also extended into the United States as well with systemic racism that the African American community faced as well. But in his trip to the Soviet Union, this commentary was selected to the experience of Jews who were being sent off to gulags. So I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Go ahead.
Why were the Jews a threat to
Into the
country?
Soviet Union?
No.
Because our particular differences set us aside as a religion and our people. So in a world where everyone must be the same and there's no religion, the Jews were part of a religious group that were being systemically being put aside. There was also a history within the Soviet Union, as well as all of Europe, of anti-Semitism that predated the entire experience. So we're going to turn to, we're gonna,
When you look at Stalinism,
yes,
Stalinism, after when Trotsky and Lenin were taken out and they passed away, we had Stalinism. Stalin was anti-Semitic from the core. He also believed in the worldwide common commune. Religion was the bane of the masses. So therefore, religion had to be subjectively muted or destroyed. It wasn't just Judaism, it was Russian Orthodoxy as well.
yes, but
All right, and other things. It wasn't, but it was, Stalinism was anti-religion, period.
yes, but the Jews were, there were pre-existing Jewish
Because we were
organizations.
part of the intelligentsia.
Yeah, there were pre-existing Jewish organizations that were Yiddish-based, for instance, Shalom Aleichem and others that were being systemically put aside because there was, yes, and there was also, in the case for the Jewish community, the Yiddish-speaking community, different nationalities set aside in the Soviet Union. For instance, there were Georgians, there were Chechens, there was Armenians as well, all recognized ethnicities to the former Soviet Union. However, one of the ethnicities that were not recognized to have the special statuses of other groups were the Jews. So,
And
okay.
you could also see it during that period was
Great.
a poem by
Yes.
Yevgeny Yevtushenko of that period.
Yep.
He was put into a gulag just for that poem.
Yep. Thank you. Very interesting conversation. We should have it after the service though, so we're going to move on with the service now. So we're going to now turn to the Misha Berak prayer. In just a moment, I'd like to ask anyone who'd like to have any names added to our list after the names have been read aloud. Today's Misha Berak list includes the following names: Miriam Mendel Ben Shira, Nachman Ben Malka, Alan Lewis, Esther Bat Ruth, Yehuda Ben Joseph, Russ Pineri, Ilya Ostrava, Emma Libros, Chava Bat Sarah, Janice Robbins, Janice Tananzo, Shoshana Alana Bet Devorah, Leslie Berg, Jacob Victory, Gordon Jennifer Frunchel, Shimon Ben Abraham, Jerome Daus, Yosef Ben Alka, Yeheskel Moshe Ben Rachel, Amy Appleman, Jay Simkoff, Asher Ephraim, Justin Leggs, Yovet Zamos, and of course we draw attention to the hostages that are still remaining in Gaza. Are there any additional names anyone would like to add to our list for today?
Eli Oster,
Eli Oster,
Pat and Rudy Maurer,
Pat and Rudy Maurer,
Lori Hanson,
Lori Hanson,
Marianne Molka,
Marianne Malka,
two more, Regina Pasternak,
Regina Pasternak,
and Michelle Pearlson.
Michelle Person. Very good. Yes,
Alan Steinberg and
Alan.
Barbara Steinberg.
Alan Steinberg and Barbara Steinberg. Thank you.
Jeff Oates.
Jeff
Oates.
Hodes. Okay. Any additional names? Yes.
Yes, Brad Lewis.
Brad Lewis,
Erwin Estrella. Erwin Estrella.
Erwin Alstrea. Any additional names? No? Go ahead.
Gloria Morrison.
Gloria Morrison. Okay. We now will turn to the Misha Berak prayer at the very back of our sidduris. Misha Berak Avotenu Mekor HaBrecha Le'avotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berak Imotenu Mekor HaBrecha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We're going to rise now for the Aleinu found on page 30 of our sidduris. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'ateit gidula l'yotzeh b'reishit shalo atzana kikiyei aratzot v'lo samanu kimishpachot ha'adama shalo sam kalkeinu kachem v'gor aleinu kithol hamonam v'anachnu gorim u'mishpachanim u'motim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Sha'unet Shamayim v'yoser haaretz u'moshiv yekaro b'shamayim mima'al u'shkinatu zo b'govei neramim hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efes ulato kagatu b'torato v'yadata hayom v'hoshevota ela Ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mima'al v'yal haaretz mitachad ein od. Page 31. We therefore hope in you, O eternal our God, soon to behold the splendor of your might. Then will false gods vanish from the earth, and the idols will be utterly cut off, to heal the world through the sovereignty of the Almighty. Then will all acclaim you as your God, and forsaking evil, turn to alone. Let all who dwell on earth acknowledge that unto you every knee must bend, and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, O eternal our God, let them humble themselves. To your glorious name let them give honor. Let all accept the yoke of your dominion, that you may rule over them soon and forever. For the dominion is yours, and you will rule in glory, as it is written, the eternal will reign forever and ever. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may be seated at this time. In just a moment, we're going to be turning to the final prayers of our service, which include the Mourner's Kaddish on page 33. In just a moment, I'll be reciting names from our Yortzeit list. After the names from the Yortzeit list have been read aloud, I'd like to ask if anyone in our community would like to add any names to our Yortzeit list or members of our community who have recently passed. Today's Yortzeit list includes the following names: Harry Hires, Mark Huberman, George Feldman, Jerome Pollack, Aaron Seowitz, David Feinberg, Barbara Goldberg, Leonard Goodman, Clarence Manziano, Caroline Natras, Howie Korn, Marty Pine, Sidney Appleman, Glenna Cohen, Elliot Levins, Jeffrey Suslowitz, Millie Estrin, Beatrice Korn, Ann Longmore, Max Porras, Hyman Aronson, Arnold Flam, Sheila Lewis, Etta Spivak, Cecil Libros, Howard Barron, Dina Lerner, Daniel Wander, Rachel Boyer, Jerome Routh, Pauline Schwerd, Gary Friedman, Stephen Finkel, Charles Flasig, Carol Lichtenstein, Molly Netterman, Ruth Levinson, Shirley Watine, Helen Fine. Recently passed from our community are the following names: Stephen Carol Lichtenstein, Stephen Poland, Zanbo Ben Motola Shifra, Erwin Schwob, Ruth Lewis, Shlomo Leigh Ben Vovel, Bruce Estrin, Francis Seowitz, Phil Miller, Brian Leibowitz, Hirsch Poland, Cantor Mary Barron, Wendy Sansevieri, Ann Mushkell, Harry Roden, Sam Perlman, Gussie Blumenstock, Michael Berkowitz, Marcy Victor Banks. Are there any additional names anyone is observing a Yortzeit for here today or in the period of Shoshima?
Roberta Hose.
Roberta Hose.
David Hudis.
David Hudis.
Bernie Spodak.
Bernie Spodak.
Alice Newman.
Alice Newman.
Gerald Greenfield.
Gerald Greenfield.
Tom Moore,
Tom Moore.
Lloyda Friedenreich,
Lloyda Friedenreich.
Gloria Tucker,
Gloria Tucker.
Lenny Preston,
Lenny Preston.
Lois Flamholtz.
Lois Flamholtz.
How old is this citizen?
All right, we're going to rise now for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 33 of our Siddurim. We're going to rise on page 33 of our Siddurim. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah B'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon v'yodnechon u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala v'zman keri v'imru amen Yahei shmei Rabbah nivorach l'olam olamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzba'ar v'yitraman v'yitnasei V'yitzhadar v'yitzaleh v'yitzalal shemei v'kudashah b'rechu Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushvechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yashlem Rabba mit Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. We have an opportunity now for our announcements. I'd like to invite up our speaker today for our announcements.
Max, do you want to start with the prayer book? Tell them about it. Go ahead.
Well, you guys are all holding binders. We're finally ready to put this on the actual, and now this is the draft, by the way. We've got a couple of them to go through. And ignore these, that's not an indication for you guys of how many hours there are. So we're doing fundraising for this. We're hoping to have it printed March. So 150 copies. And if you make, everybody should have gotten a letter or at least an email about it. If you make $540 donation. We're actually gonna have a commemorative page inside for those people making, donations. But you can also make a smaller donation, put a link, put a, donated by in honor or memory of somebody in one of the books. You should have all gotten letters. There's stuff in there a lot me too. But we're looking forward to having real books after all these years.
Shabbat Shalom. Usually I have a piece of paper like this to do the announcements, but because I was so into my thing today, I forgot. Now it's not coming up on my phone. However, tomorrow the Torah study is at 10 o'clock a.m. Worship is at 10:30. Our next blood drive is Sunday, February 9th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. More information on weekly email. Student Shabbat is January 18th. And K to 4 will leave the service January 31st. Hopefully that's all there is.
January 18th passed. January 18th passed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's last week's.
Student Shabbat is when, Marilyn?
February
No.
something.
I don't know when it is.
Okay. All right.
Probably in February.
We're gonna now turn to page 34 for Adon Olam. Adon Olam Asher Malach. B'terem kol Yitzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa Lehefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nekra, B'yachai Rei Kilot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora, Behu Haya, Behu Hoveh, Behu Yeh B'tzif Ara, Behu Echad B'ein Sheni. Lehamshilo lehachbira, beli reshit, beli tachli, belo haoz behamizra, behu eli, bechai goali, betzor chevli, beyesara, behu nisi umanosli, menat kosi beyom ekra, biya'ado afkid ruchi. V'yetzishan v'ya'ira v'imruchi yeviyati Adonai li v'lo ira. Good Shabbos, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to join for the Kiddush in just a moment. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.